Well, I want to shift a bit to specifically your entrepreneurial journey. Take me through like your journey from being an employee to starting your business, and then now to growing it and turning it into a franchise type business.
Yeah. So for the business part, I guess one note is like, I don't necessarily buy into, now knowing what I know, I don't buy into the fact that there's only certain things which you can do remotely, especially now. Like there's so many things which you can do remotely, even if it's not a job, right? If it's your own business, I have a local cleaning company, which can be done remotely, meaning anything can be done remotely, right? So initially when I started, I was only looking into what I was told on the internet as a remote job that I could do while traveling, right? Anything which you could do like e-commerce, drop shipping, right? That kind of thing. So finally, just on a whim, I decided to start this cleaning company and it started working. And then, if you have a problem, you need to solve it. Like I wanted to travel, therefore I figured out the solution, which is how do you make this remote? And it's much easier than you think. It just depends on certain business models. So anyways, as it really started to work, I started to hire people to take on a lot of the pieces for me. For the cleaners, of course, are local, but when they call, they don't need to report to an office. So they simply call. As long as I have someone else to pick up that phone call, it's fine. So my team members are across the world right now. So I think we're in about 7 or 8 different countries is nice. Where the internal operations team is. The cleaners, of course, are all local. At that point, we were growing, and when I was working and doing this as a side hustle, I'd run outside during lunch and like take calls, or like at the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. So cleaners would come up and like I'd pay them in cash. I'd go to the ATM, run outside of my building and give them cash. Of course, like everyone from my building could see me. So they're like, that dude's a drug dealer for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So my nickname around the office was drug dealer. And I didn't know what to tell them, because I can't tell them, oh, I'm running a side hustle while I'm at work, right? So I was just like, no, it's just like I had to pay my house cleaner for something like that. So it was funny. So I was grinding, just kind of figuring out for a couple of years. You hire people, and finally got to the point where we were doing, I think, 30K in revenue per month, where I said, okay, I'm going to quit now. Like I've been doing this for 2 years. I'm going to quit and travel. My thought process was, I'll do it for a year. If it fails, I could get some tech job or come back and work in private equity and finance, something like that. So I was planning to just do it for a year. And then the first year, the business doubled. And I do think Canada is like kind of an inflection point around the 2-year mark, where like that's where things really start picking up, right? Because at least for local businesses, you don't have as much of a reputation the first year. Your SEO hasn't kicked in yet. A lot of your marketing hasn't kicked in. And at around 2-year mark is kind of that threshold where you've got a great foundation. You can kind of bust through is what I found. So it just so happened that's also when I left and started traveling, and the business doubled that first year, and kind of kept growing from there. So that was kind of the journey over the time. And then, of course, as we've grown and getting to the franchise question, Cam, that was for 5 years, I was just growing the business. We expanded to San Francisco, but it was just me growing the business, doing that. And a year ago, I was kind of figuring out, hey, how else do I want to expand? I don't want to just self-expand, because, it's a lot just to do by yourself. Met a guy at a business conference who said, hey, why don't you think about franchising? I looked into it, decided to go with it. And about a year and a half ago is when we decided to start franchising the model. And the goal is just to be like, I don't want to call it the franchise for nomads, but like pretty much using the same model I did, right? Like you can have a local business and dominate a local market while traveling the world. I've done it, right? Here's the story. So selling the model and having a ready-made model for people who actually want to do that as well, start a side hustle, eventually quit the job and travel. That's kind of what the franchise was structured after. So now I'm just kind of going full force and working on the franchise model now, which has been pretty rewarding.
Got it. So Made This. Is it madethis.com for anyone who's interested?
Yeah, madethis.com or madethisfranchise.com. You can find them both on there.
Got it. And I guess broadly speaking, I mean, you brought up an interesting thing, which is like, what is a remote job and what is a remote business? And I guess your shift from sort of looking for remote jobs to just building something and turning it into something that's remote, which I like. And I think it's an interesting topic, because I've thought about this I've thought about it on sort of a similar level. Think about like, what is a passive business? Like, when does a business change from being an active business to a passive business, at least for you as the owner, which in many ways is a direct parallel to when can it be remote? Because by definition, if you have a local business and you're no longer involved in the day-to-day operations, then, you can be remote.
Correct.
And I mean, I think kind of to your original point is, after you get through the launch and initial scaling, you can put other people in place to like run the operations, and you get yourself out of the weeds where you're in a strategic overseeing non-day-to-day role. Almost anything can become a remote business.
I agree. And I think there's probably two ways to think about it. You could either start a remote business by having a business model which is conducive to be remote. And I'll talk about even just from the local spectrum. A lot of home service companies can be done remotely, cleaning companies, window washing, junk removal. Like a lot of these type of things you can do remote because the technician is dispatched from their homes to the job site. So all you need to do is make sure you can coordinate stuff. It doesn't matter how you do that. If you schedule from Argentina, you pick up calls from Budapest, it doesn't really matter. So those models are a little bit more conducive to that. But Cam, to your point, any business model can be remote if you get it to the stage where you have managers. For example, at McDonald's, I guarantee you the person who starts any McDonald's, because it's $1 million buy-in, is remote.
Is that what it is now? It's $1 million to get
like
McDonald's.
Yeah. Because for the buying, for the real estate and all the things needed, like you need $1 million liquid. I actually don't know how much it costs to open it up, but you need $1 million liquid to be able to do it. So yeah, it's a lot, right? But the guys opening that are not the ones running it. Guaranteed, they could be remote. They could open up a McDonald's and be remote because they have enough managers and they've invested enough. So those are two ends of the spectrum. What you said, Cam's kind of right in the middle, is if you could start a business and get it to the point where managers can mostly manage it and you're providing LMA, which is leadership, management, and accountability, all of a sudden remote as well. So there's many ways to do it. And that's kind of the spectrum I see of how you could go along with it. Things which can't be remote is like, don't be a personal trainer. Yeah, things which are dependent on you physically being there, obviously not great to be remote. So, oftentimes I say, why reinvent the wheel? There's lots of models which are great for remote. Just copy. You don't need to completely reinvent the wheel with something.
Yeah, it seems like on the personal trainer example, the model that a lot of people have moved towards to make things passive and remote is to switch things into being info businesses. It's like taking a local business, like, personal trainer or something like that, and changing it to like, here's an info course on either how to get shredded or on how to start a personal training business.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's where I've moved most of my focus is into the information space, less so right now on the course side, but the both info products where people are buying things and then like content affiliate stuff is definitely very like remote and flexibility oriented, which I really like.